The first time Jamal Carter played his violin in public, the crowd didn't cheer. They laughed. It was an open mic night at Harmony Café, a cozy little spot in downtown Detroit, where musicians, poets, and dreamers gathered every Friday. The air smelled of roasted coffee and old books, and the dim golden lights made the place feel like a sanctuary. Jamal had spent weeks preparing for this moment, his fingers trembling as he adjusted the strings of his violin, an instrument he didn't just play, but breathed life into. But his style wasn't classical. It wasn't jazz. It wasn't anything people could easily label. Jamal played like his soul was on fire, mixing hip-hop rhythms with soulful melodies, bending notes in ways that made traditionalists frown. And that night, as he closed his eyes and let the music take over, someone in the crowd snickered. "What even is this? Sounds like a cat stuck in a guitar," a voice called out. Laughter rippled through the room. Jamal's fingers faltered. His heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his throat. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Music was the only thing that had ever made sense to him. The only thing that drowned out the voices telling him he wasn't good enough. When he finished, the applause was sparse, polite, the kind people give when they don't know what else to do. Jamal swallowed hard, nodded his thanks, and stepped off the stage, his violin case feeling heavier than ever. Outside, the Detroit air was crisp, the kind of cold that made you pull your jacket tighter. Jamal exhaled, watching his breath swirl into the night. "Hey." He turned. A girl with curly hair and a Harmony Cafe apron stood there, holding a steaming cup. "Hot chocolate," she said, offering it. "You looked like you needed it." Jamal took it, warmth seeping into his fingers. "Thanks. I'm guessing you didn't come out here to tell me how amazing that was." She smirked. "I'm Leah. And no, I didn't. But I did come out here to say, I've never heard anyone play like that before." Jamal scoffed. "Yeah, because it was terrible." "No," Leah said firmly, "because it was different. And different scares people." Jamal studied her. Most people just pitied him or mocked him. But Leah? She sounded like she meant it. "You really think so?" She grinned. "I know so. But if you don't believe me, prove me right. Play again. Next week." Jamal hesitated. The laughter still stung. The doubt still gnawed at him. But then he thought about his mother, who had worked 2 jobs just to afford his first violin. About his little sister, who always told him his music sounded like magic. He took a sip of the hot chocolate, the sweetness cutting through the bitterness of the night. "All right," he said. "Next week." Little did he know that decision would change everything. The second time Jamal played at Harmony Cafe, the crowd was bigger, but not for the reason he hoped. Word had spread about the weird violinist, the kid who played like he was making up the rules as he went. Some came out of curiosity. Others came to laugh. Jamal could feel their eyes on him as he stepped onto the small stage, his palms slick with sweat. The cafe hummed with chatter, the clinking of coffee cups, the occasional snicker. Leah stood behind the counter, arms crossed, giving him a firm nod. "You got this." Jamal took a deep breath, lifted his violin, and let his fingers dance. This time, he played something darker. A storm of notes, sharp and unpredictable, like thunder rolling over the city. He poured every ounce of frustration into the strings, every time someone had told him he wasn't enough. The music swelled, raw and untamed, and for a moment the room fell silent. Then a voice cut through the spell. "Man, just play something normal." A few people chuckled. Jamal's bow slipped, hitting a wrong note. His chest tightened. But then, "Shut up and let him play." Jamal's head snapped up. A tall guy in the back, arms crossed, glared at the heckler. The room buzzed with tension. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Jamal kept playing. This time, he didn't hold back. After the set, the tall guy approached him. "Name's Darius," he said, voice low and steady. "You got something special, man. Don't let these fools make you doubt it." Jamal wiped his brow. "Thanks. But it's hard when half the room thinks you're a joke." Darius smirked. "The other half thinks you're a genius. Which half you want to listen to?" Jamal didn't answer, but the question stuck with him. The next few weeks were a blur of small gigs, whispers, and sideways glances. Some people started requesting him. Others walked out when he played. But every night, Leah handed him a hot chocolate, and Darius stood in the back, nodding along like Jamal's music was a language only they understood. Then, one evening, an older man in a sharp suit walked in. He sat in the corner, sipping black coffee, watching Jamal with an unreadable expression. When the set ended, the man approached, handing Jamal a crisp business card. "Malcolm Graves, Detroit Symphony Orchestra," he said. "You're untrained, unrefined, but you've got something I haven't heard in years." Jamal's heart raced. "Is that a good thing?" Malcolm's lips twitched. "It's a dangerous thing. Talent like yours? It either changes the world or gets crushed by it." He tapped the card. "There's a competition next month. Prestigious. Cutthroat. You should enter." Jamal stared at the card. The International Young Virtuoso Prize. A ticket to everything he'd ever dreamed of. Or the biggest humiliation of his life. "Why me?" he whispered. Malcolm studied him. "Because the world doesn't need another perfect musician. It needs one who isn't afraid to break the rules." Then he walked out, leaving Jamal standing there, the weight of the opportunity pressing down on him. Leah squeezed his shoulder. "You're going to do it, right?" Jamal exhaled. "I don't know." But deep down, he already did. The stage lights burned hotter than Jamal expected. He stood in the wings of the Grand Riviera Theater, his violin case clutched in trembling hands. The air smelled of polished wood and nervous sweat. Backstage, other competitors, all trained at elite conservatories, all dressed in tailored suits and gowns, glanced at him, then away. Their whispers slithered through the silence. "Is that the guy from the café? I heard he doesn't even read sheet music. This isn't some street performance. He's going to embarrass himself." Jamal's throat tightened. He adjusted his collar, a borrowed suit from Darius, slightly too big in the shoulders. Then a hand gripped his arm. Leah stood beside him, her curls pinned back, wearing a deep red dress she'd sewn herself. "Breathe," she ordered. "You're not here for them. You're here for you." Darius loomed behind her, arms crossed. "And for every kid who's ever been told they don't belong." Jamal exhaled. Then the announcer called his name. The applause was polite, cautious. The judges, 3 stern-faced maestros, watched him with skepticism. The crowd, packed with critics and elites, waited for him to fail. Jamal closed his eyes and played. Not for the judges, not for the trophy, but for every time he'd been laughed at. For his mother, who'd sold her favorite coat to buy his first violin. For Leah and Darius, who believed in him before he believed in himself. The music started slow, a haunting, aching melody that made the room still. Then, like a storm breaking, it exploded. Hip-hop rhythms collided with classical precision. His bow flew across the strings, fingers dancing in a frenzy of passion and pain. The judges leaned forward. The crowd stopped whispering. And then a string snapped. Gasps rippled through the theater. Jamal's heart stopped. But he didn't. He adapted. Shifting his fingers, bending the melody, he turned the flaw into part of the song. The music grew wilder, freer, as if the broken string had unleashed something even he didn't know was inside him. When he finished, the silence was deafening. Then, one judge stood, clapping. Then another. Then the entire theater erupted. Backstage, Malcolm Graves found him, eyes gleaming. "You didn't just play, Jamal. You rewrote the rules." Jamal's knees nearly gave out. "Does that mean—" Malcolm smiled. "Wait and see." When the winner was announced, Jamal barely heard his name over the roar of the crowd. The trophy felt heavy in his hands, but the weight of the moment, the victory, was even heavier. Reporters swarmed him afterward. "How does it feel? What's next?" Jamal looked past them, to where Leah was crying and Darius was grinning like a proud big brother. "It feels," he said softly, "like the beginning." The Harmony Café was packed, not with critics, not with doubters, but with dreamers, kids with violins, guitars, notebooks, all there because of him. Jamal still played there every Friday, still drank Leah's hot chocolate, still laughed at Darius's terrible jokes. But now, when he took the stage, no one laughed. They listened. And when he played, the music wasn't just his anymore. It belonged to everyone who'd ever been told they weren't good enough. And that was the greatest victory of all. Thank you for watching.